High guy tonight. A quiet wind drifts across an old battlefield, carrying the hush of falling snow and the echoes of lives once lived beneath a cold sky. In this story, we will walk gently into the past, where even in the shadow of war, silence could still feel soft, and snow could still fall with kindness. Before we begin, take a moment to settle in. If this kind of calm, historical sleep story brings you comfort, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Let me know where you are watching from. Maybe it's evening in the United States, late night in Europe, or early morning in Canada, and what time it is for you as you listen. Your presence, wherever you are in the world, becomes part of this shared quiet moment. Now, loosen your shoulders, slow your breathing, and allow the outside world to fade. As the snow begins to fall, we return gently to our story. The first snow of winter arrived without ceremony, drifting down over Verdun as if the sky itself had grown tired of noise. It fell lightly at first, thin white threads dissolving against dark earth and worn timber, barely noticed by the men who huddled in the trenches below. Then, slowly, it thickened, softening the jagged edges of the battlefield, laying a pale veil over scars carved by months of thunder and fire. The world seemed to exhale as the snow settled, one breath at a time. In the trenches, the air was heavy with damp wood, cold iron, and the faint, lingering scent of smoke that never truly left. Boots pressed into mud that had frozen just enough to crack underfoot, each step making a quiet, brittle sound. Somewhere in the distance, a lone crow called, its voice thin and lonely, then vanished into the gray sky. The snow absorbed everything else, the clink of metal, the murmured voices, even the restless thoughts that clung to the soldiers like their coats. A young soldier leaned against the trench wall, pulling his collar tighter around his neck. Snowflakes caught in his hair and melted slowly, cold as whispered memories. As he watched the flakes fall, mesmerized by their gentle descent, each one unique, each one silent. For a moment, Verdun did not feel like the center of a terrible storm. It felt suspended, as if time itself had paused to watch the snow. Across the field, shattered trees stood like quiet witnesses, their broken branches outlined in white. The land that had once been green now slept beneath its winter covering, hiding wounds beneath softness. Even the barbed wire, cruel and sharp, seemed less threatening under the snow, its edges blurred, its purpose briefly forgotten. The battlefield was still there, unchanged beneath the surface, but the snow offered a fragile kindness, an illusion of peace that no one dared to disturb. Breath rose in pale clouds, slow and steady, as the soldier closed his eyes for a heartbeat longer than necessary. In that small space of silence, hope did not shout. It whispered. It said that even here, even now, the world could still be gentle. And as the snow continued to fall, Verdun listened, wrapped in white, waiting for the night to deepen. As evening crept closer, the light over Verdun softened, turning the snow a faint shade of blue-gray. The sky lowered itself gently, like a blanket being pulled up over a restless child, and the cold deepened in a quiet, patient way. Lanterns flickered to life along the trench line, their warm glow trembling against the vastness of the dark. Each small flame felt precious, a fragile island of light floating in an endless sea of winter. The snow continued its slow descent, thicker now, layering the ground with careful attention. It filled footprints, smoothed rough edges, and settled on helmets and shoulders without sound. The battlefield seemed to shrink inward, becoming smaller, more intimate, as if the night wished to keep everything close and contained. Even the distant guns, so often roaring like angry giants, had fallen silent, leaving behind a ringing calm that hummed softly in the ears. Inside the trench, men moved with deliberate slowness, hands wrapped around tin cups, fingers stiff but grateful for the warmth within. Steam rose gently, mingling with breath, then disappeared into the cold air above. Conversations were hushed, words chosen carefully, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile peace the snow had brought. Some spoke of home, of kitchens lit by firelight, of snow falling on familiar streets, of voices that felt far away but comforting to remember. One soldier sat on a wooden crate, brushing snow from his sleeve. He listened to the quiet, noticing things he usually missed: the faint creak of frozen wood, the soft whisper of snow sliding from a ledge, the slow rhythm of his own heartbeat. In the stillness, memories surfaced gently, not as sharp pains, but as soft images: warm bread, a mother's voice, a door closing against the cold. These thoughts did not hurt as much tonight. The snow seemed to soften them too. Above the trench the land lay motionless, a wide white canvas beneath the stars that struggled to shine through the clouds. Verdun, scarred and weary, rested for a moment in the arms of winter. The night did not promise safety, nor did it erase fear, but it offered something quieter and just as necessary: rest. And as the men settled into the slow hours ahead, the snow kept falling, steady and patient, as if standing watch until morning. By the time true night arrived, the snow had grown deep enough to muffle every movement. Each step along the trench was swallowed whole, leaving only a soft impression that vanished moments later beneath fresh flakes. The world felt hushed in a way that was almost sacred, as though Verdun itself were listening closely, holding its breath beneath the white coverlet. Even the wind had softened, brushing past gently, rather than cutting through coats and skin. A patrol moved slowly along the trench edge, their lantern held low, its light dimmed by falling snow. Shadows stretched and blurred, reshaping familiar forms into something dreamlike. The men walked carefully, boots sinking with a dull, padded sound, their movements unhurried, respectful of the silence that surrounded them. In this quiet, every sound felt larger inside the mind, yet smaller in the world beyond. Beyond the trench, the open ground lay smooth and untouched, save for the faint outlines of old tracks now nearly erased. Somewhere beneath the snow rested the remains of broken tools, discarded helmets, fragments of yesterday's violence. The snow hid them all with equal tenderness, as if refusing to choose what deserved to be remembered and what should be forgotten. Everything was simply covered, made still, allowed to rest. One soldier paused, lifting his face toward the sky. Snowflakes landed on his eyelashes, clinging there briefly before melting into warmth. He thought of walking home on winter nights long ago, the sound of his own footsteps echoing down quiet streets. That memory rose and settled gently like the snow itself, reminding him that silence could exist without fear. For a moment, the vast distance between this place and home felt smaller, bridged by shared winter nights. Somewhere far away, a single gun echoed, dull and distant, then faded. It did not break the calm so much as ripple through it, like a stone dropped into still water. The silence returned quickly, thicker than before, closing around the men like a protective wall. They continued on, steady and calm, trusting the night to guide them safely through its long hours. As the patrol disappeared into the dim light, The snow kept falling, smoothing away their path behind them. Verdun lay wrapped in white, footsteps hidden, voices quieted, time slowed to a gentle drift. In this deepening night, the battlefield seemed to sleep, not healed but held, waiting patiently beneath the snow. The lantern's glow swayed softly as it was set down on a wooden ledge, casting warm circles of light against the frozen walls of the trench. Shadows leaned and stretched, then settled, as if growing tired of movement. The men gathered closer to the light, not for warmth alone, but for the quiet comfort of seeing one another's faces clearly in the night. Snowflakes drifted down even here, melting as they touched the dim heat of the flame. Someone adjusted a blanket, the rough wool rasping gently in the stillness. Another man leaned back, eyes half closed, listening to the faint sounds that survived beneath the snow. The distant crack of frozen earth, the slow drip of melting ice, the soft rhythm of breathing shared among them. These small sounds felt grounding, reminders that life continued in ordinary ways even here, even now. Thoughts wandered easily in the lantern light. One soldier traced a finger along the grain of the wooden trench wall, following lines shaped by time and weather. He imagined the tree it once was, standing tall in a forest far from Verdun, leaves rustling in a warmer wind. The thought brought a quiet ache, but it was gentle, like a bruise pressed carefully. In the calm of the snow, even sorrow seemed to rest more softly. Outside, the snow thickened again, cloaking the land in deeper white. The outlines of the battlefield faded further, dissolving into simple shapes and quiet curves. The war felt distant in this moment, not gone, but muted, as if wrapped in layers of cloth. The lantern flickered, then steadied, its small flame stubborn and patient, much like the men who depended on it. As the hour grew late, eyelids grew heavy. Some leaned against the trench wall, others curled into themselves, conserving warmth and strength. No one spoke of tomorrow. Tonight belonged to the snow, to the light, to the quiet companionship of shared silence. Verdun, beneath its soft white covering, held these moments gently, letting them linger before the long night moved on. Sleep came slowly, like the careful closing of a door that did not wish to make a sound. One by one, the men drifted into rest, their breathing deepening, their bodies finally surrendering to the quiet insistence of fatigue. The snow continued to fall above them, steady and unhurried, as if standing guard while they slept. The night pressed close, not threatening, but watchful and still. Dreams moved gently through their minds, shaped by the calm of the snow. Some dreamed of home, of rooms warmed by fires and laughter echoing down hallways. Others dreamed only of walking, endless paths through white fields where no sound followed their steps. These dreams were not sharp or sudden. They unfolded slowly, like stories told in low voices, easy to follow, easy to rest within. Above the trenches, the sky cleared just enough for a few stars to appear, faint and distant. Their light filtered down, barely touching the snow-covered ground, yet offering a quiet reminder of a wider world beyond Verdun. The battlefield lay silent, its usual tension eased by the cold and the darkness. Even the shadows seemed softer now, blurred at the edges by moonlight and snow. A lone sentry stood watch, his breath forming slow clouds in the air. He shifted his weight carefully, mindful not to disturb those resting nearby. Snow gathered on his coat, unnoticed, adding weight, but also warmth. He listened to the silence, alert yet calm, trusting the night to carry him through his watch. In this moment, vigilance and peace existed side by side. Time moved differently beneath the frozen sky. Minutes stretched, then slipped away unnoticed. The snow kept falling, layering dreams over reality, rest over weariness. Verdun slept as deeply as it could, wrapped in white, held gently by the night until morning would one day return. Long before the sun revealed itself, dawn announced its presence with a subtle change in the air. The darkness lightened almost imperceptibly, shifting from deep gray to a softer shade, like charcoal fading into ash. Snow still fell, though more lightly now, each flake drifting with delicate patience. Verdun seemed to stir beneath its white covering, not awake, but aware. In the trenches the men slept on, their breaths slow and even, rising and falling in quiet rhythm. Frost traced gentle patterns along the wooden beams, catching the first hints of morning light. Somewhere, ice cracked softly as it adjusted to the warming air, a small sound that felt intimate in the vast stillness. The night loosened its grip without resistance. The sentry finished his watch, rubbing warmth back into his hands before moving aside. Another man took his place, movements unhurried, respectful of the lingering calm. There was no rush to greet the day. Morning here arrived gently, as if mindful of the weight this land already carried. The snow, thinly lit by the growing light, shimmered faintly, turning the battlefield into something almost beautiful. As eyes began to open, the men noticed the change. A pale glow filtered down into the trenches, illuminating faces softened by sleep. For a moment confusion hovered, where they were, what day it was, before memory settled back in. Yet the usual heaviness did not return at once. The snow and the light delayed it, offering a brief space of quiet clarity. Above them, the sky stretched wide and calm, painted in muted tones of silver and blue. Verdun breathed in the morning, slow and measured, as if savoring the peace before it faded. The day had begun, but it did so gently, guided by the soft snowfall that still refused to hurry. Morning settled fully over Verdun, not with brightness, but with a calm, even light that seemed to rest upon the snow. The battlefield stretched out in quiet lines and soft curves, its harsh features smoothed by winter's careful hand. Where there had once been chaos, there was now stillness, fragile, temporary, yet deeply felt. The air carried a clean cold scent, sharp but refreshing, like a slow breath drawn in after a long night. The men moved carefully as they rose, stretching stiff limbs and adjusting heavy coats. Snow fell from their shoulders in soft cascades, landing soundlessly at their feet. No one hurried. Each motion felt deliberate, respectful of the silence that lingered like a gift. Even routine tasks, pouring water, checking gear, were done quietly, as if the morning itself were listening. Out beyond the trenches, the field lay untouched and pale, reflecting the sky in muted tones. The snow glowed faintly, almost blue in the early light, and the shadows were long but gentle. Broken posts and distant wire marked the land, yet they seemed distant, part of another world. For now, Verdun appeared calm, wrapped in a peace that felt borrowed but welcome. One soldier stood at the trench edge, gazing outward. His breath fogged the air as he watched a single snowflake spiral down, caught briefly in a beam of light. He felt an unexpected sense of gratitude for the quiet, for the cold, for the simple fact of being present in this moment. The war had not ended, but it had paused, allowing him to feel human again. As the morning deepened, the snow slowed, then nearly stopped, leaving behind a vast, silent white. Verdun held its breath, suspended between what had been and what would come next. In this stillness, the men found a rare calm, knowing it might not last, yet grateful for every slow, peaceful second. As the morning wore on, the light grew steadier, spreading evenly across the snow-covered land. The sky remained pale and distant, as though it, too, wished to keep its emotions hidden. In this calm hour, time seemed to stretch and thin, allowing thoughts to wander without urgency. Verdun felt less like a battlefield and more like a place held in memory, already slipping into the past even as it continued to exist. Within the trenches, small moments unfolded gently. A man warmed his hands around a cup, letting the heat sink slowly into his fingers. Another brushed snow from a wooden bench, revealing dark grain beneath the white. These simple actions carried a quiet dignity, a reminder that care still mattered. The snow had made even the roughest corners feel gentler, inviting slower movements and softer thoughts. Memories surfaced easily now. One soldier recalled a winter morning from his childhood, the way snow would silence the town before anyone woke. He remembered standing at a window, watching the world turn white, feeling as though the day had been given a fresh beginning. The memory settled warmly inside him, not as longing, but as reassurance that such mornings still existed somewhere beyond this place. Outside, the field remained undisturbed, a smooth expanse reflecting light back into the sky. No birds crossed the air, no distant engines broke the quiet. The snow seemed to hold sound within itself, absorbing anything that dared to rise. Verdun, so often loud and unforgiving, appeared almost kind, as if offering this quiet hour as an apology. The men lingered in this calm, aware that it could fade at any moment. Yet they did not rush to fill it with words or movement. Instead, they allowed the silence to rest among them, to be remembered later, as proof that even here, under a soft snowfall, peace had once found a place to stay. Gradually, almost without notice, the snowfall eased. The sky lightened further, and the air took on a clearer edge, as if the world were gently waking from a long, careful sleep. Snow still clung to every surface, helmets, boards, the frozen ground, but it no longer fell with the same steady devotion. What remained lay quiet and complete, a finished work of winter spread across Verdun. The men noticed the change in small ways. Light felt sharper against their eyes, and the cold seemed to shift, becoming less heavy but more present. A few shook snow from their coats, sending white powder drifting down like breath. Others simply stood and looked, taking in the scene as though afraid it might disappear if they turned away. The calm felt delicate now, balanced on the edge of returning noise. Out on the field, shapes slowly reemerged. Dark lines of earth pressed through the white, and broken forms became clearer against the snow. The battlefield was still there, waiting patiently beneath its covering. Yet even as its features returned, they seemed subdued, as though winter had taught them restraint. A soldier leaned against the trench wall, listening. In the distance, there was a faint, almost imagined sound, metal shifting, wood creaking, signs of a world preparing to move again. His shoulders tightened slightly, but he breathed through it, letting the moment pass without fear. The quiet had done its work, leaving behind a steadier calm within him. As the snowfall ended, Verdun remained wrapped in white, silent and watchful. The pause was not over, but it had changed, becoming something remembered rather than something ongoing. And in that memory the men carried forward the softness of the snow, even as the day slowly, inevitably moved on. With the snow no longer falling, the stillness felt deeper, as though it had settled into the land itself. Verdun lay beneath its white covering, quiet and composed, revealing nothing of the tension held underneath. The cold air was clear now, each breath sharp but steady, filling the lungs with a sense of calm that lingered longer than expected. The men resumed their routines, but at a slower pace than usual. Movements were measured, voices low. A shovel scraped gently against frozen earth, its sound softened by the snow. A canteen was lifted, then lowered, the metal cool against gloved hands. These ordinary acts felt almost ceremonial, as if performed in respect for the quiet morning. Out beyond the trenches, the snow reflected the pale sky, creating a wide, open brightness that seemed to stretch endlessly. It was easy, for a moment, to forget what lay beneath: craters, wire, the remnants of long days and nights. Winter had hidden it all, offering a temporary kindness. The land looked whole again, even if only on the surface. One soldier knelt, brushing snow aside to reveal the dark soil below. The contrast was striking, white against black, softness against hardness. He paused, then covered it again, as if restoring something sacred. There was no need to expose what the snow had chosen to protect. Some things, he felt, were better left resting. As the morning advanced, the quiet held, delicate but firm. Verdun remained still, wrapped in winter's calm, holding memories beneath its white skin. And in that quiet, the men found a fragile balance between what had been endured and what they still hoped to survive. The day hovered in a suspended calm, as if unsure whether to move forward or remain still. The cold lingered gently, no longer biting, but firm enough to keep the men alert. Frost glimmered along the edges of wood and metal, catching the light in small, fleeting sparks. Verdun seemed to exist in a breath, held just a little longer than usual. In the trenches, the men leaned into the pause. Some sat quietly, backs against the boards, eyes tracing the slow drift of breath in the air. Others stood watch, not tense, but attentive, their focus spread wide and soft. The silence did not feel empty. It felt full of waiting, of listening, of shared understanding that words were unnecessary. From somewhere far away came a muted sound, barely more than a suggestion of movement. It did not grow closer, nor did it demand attention. It simply existed, then faded, leaving the quiet intact. The men exchanged glances, then returned to their thoughts, trusting the moment to remain gentle a little longer. One soldier pulled a folded letter from his coat, its edges worn soft. He did not open it. Instead, he held it in his hand, feeling its weight, its promise. The snow and the stillness made the gesture feel complete enough. The letter could wait. Everything could wait. Above them, the sky remained pale and distant, offering no urgency, no warning. Verdun rested in the cold, held in a pause that felt almost merciful. Time moved on, but slowly, respectfully, allowing the men to remain within the quiet just a while longer. As the sun climbed a little higher, its light filtered through gaps in broken wood and splintered beams, falling in gentle patterns across the snow. The brightness was muted, softened by clouds and reflected white, creating a glow that felt more like memory than daylight. Shadows moved slowly, stretching and reshaping themselves along the trench walls, then settling again. The men noticed the warmth, subtle but real. Faces turned briefly toward the light, eyes closing for a moment, as if to absorb it fully. It did not banish the cold, but it eased it, offering comfort without promise. The snow sparkled faintly where the light touched it, tiny reflections dancing and then disappearing, like fleeting thoughts. A quiet rhythm returned to the trench, slow steps, careful movements, the rustle of fabric. Nothing felt urgent. Even the passage of time seemed gentler, unfolding in long, unbroken stretches. The men allowed themselves to be present, aware of each sound and sensation without resistance. Outside, the field remained calm, its white surface broken only by distant, dark shapes. The snow softened everything it touched, even the memories pressed into the ground below. Verdun looked less like a place of endings and more like a place in between night and day, between silence and sound. As the light shifted, the warmth faded slightly, leaving behind a lingering sense of ease. The moment passed, but it left an impression like sunlight remembered on closed eyelids. And in that quiet, the men remained steady, carried forward by the soft light that had found them, even here. The air grew calmer as midday approached, settling into a steady, quiet cold that felt easier to breathe. Each inhale carried the clean scent of snow and frozen earth, and each exhale drifted away in a pale cloud, slow and unhurried. And Verdun seemed to breathe with the men, its rhythms matching theirs, its stillness deepening rather than fading. In the trenches, time passed almost unnoticed. A man leaned against the wall, counting his breaths without meaning to, one, then another, finding comfort in the simple repetition. Nearby, someone adjusted a scarf, the fabric brushing softly against his cheek. These small sensations grounded them, anchoring them to the present moment where nothing demanded immediate action. Outside, the snow held firm, no longer shifting or falling. It lay smooth and unbroken, reflecting light upward and making the sky seem closer. The battlefield appeared distant, reduced to shapes and lines beneath the white. The weight of past days felt lighter here, as if winter had pressed it down gently, allowing it to rest. A sense of shared quiet filled the space. No one spoke of fear or fatigue. Those things existed, but they rested beneath the surface, softened by the calm. The men exchanged brief looks, subtle nods, silent acknowledgments that this peace, however temporary, was real and worth holding on to. As breath followed breath and the stillness remained unbroken, Verdun lingered in a rare balance. The day did not rush them. Instead, it moved slowly, guided by snow, light, and the steady, quiet presence of those who waited within it. Though the surface of Verdun lay calm, faint echoes stirred beneath the snow, memories held quietly in the frozen ground. They did not rise sharply or demand attention. Instead, they moved like distant currents, slow and subdued, felt more than heard. The snow seemed to listen, absorbing these echoes, keeping them gentle. In the trenches, the men sensed this depth without fear. One traced a boot along the packed snow, feeling the firmness beneath. Another rested a hand against the cold wood, aware of its solidity. These small contacts reminded them that the present moment was stable, held together by earth and winter, by shared stillness. A low sound drifted across the field, carried by the cold air. It was indistinct, almost imagined, and it faded as quickly as it arrived. No one reacted. The quiet had taught them patience, the ability to let sounds pass without stirring unease. Verdun remained composed, its breath even, its silence intact. The snow continued to guard what lay beneath, stories, struggles, footsteps now gone. In doing so, it allowed the living to rest more easily above it. The land felt layered, not only with snow, but with time itself, each moment resting gently atop the last. As midday lingered, the echoes remained quiet, held safely under winter's care. The men stayed calm, steady in their breathing, trusting the snow to keep its watch. And in that trust, the stillness deepened, wrapping Verdun in a peace that felt both fragile and real. The afternoon unfolded slowly, its hours stretched thin beneath a sky that remained pale and distant. Light drifted across the snow without urgency, changing so subtly it was almost impossible to notice. Verdun seemed suspended in this long white moment, held between what had already passed and what had not yet arrived. The men moved quietly, conserving energy, matching the day's gentle pace. A can was opened with care, its soft click sounding louder than expected in the still air. Food was eaten slowly, thoughtfully, each bite warming the body just enough. There was comfort in these small routines, a reminder that even here, life followed simple patterns. Outside the trench, the snow showed faint signs of age, small dips where warmth had begun to soften it, a thin sheen where ice caught the light. Yet the field remained mostly untouched, a calm expanse that invited the eyes to rest. Looking out over it felt like gazing into a wide, quiet sea, one that held no waves, only reflection. A soldier sat with his back to the trench wall, eyes half closed. He listened not for danger, but for rhythm, the slow passage of time, the subtle shifts of light and air. His thoughts drifted without effort, carried by the afternoon stillness. The war felt far away in this moment, existing beyond the edge of awareness. As the long white afternoon continued, Verdun remained hushed and patient. Nothing pressed forward, nothing demanded attention. The snow, the light, and the quiet worked together, allowing the men to rest within the day as it slowly, gently moved on. As afternoon leaned toward evening, the light began its gradual retreat. It did not leave suddenly, but softened and thinned like a breath slowly released. Shadows lengthened across the snow, stretching gently before settling into place. Verdun accepted the change without resistance, easing once more into a deeper quiet. The men sensed the shift and adjusted instinctively. Coats were pulled closer, movements grew even slower. The air cooled again, clear and steady, carrying the familiar scent of winter. Lanterns were checked, not yet lit, but prepared, their presence a quiet reassurance that warmth and light would return when needed. Outside, the field took on a bluish tone, the snow reflecting the dimming sky. Edges blurred, and the land seemed to draw inward, becoming more intimate. The battlefield felt smaller now, enclosed by dusk, its vastness softened by shadow. The day's calm had not faded, it had simply deepened. One soldier watched the light change, noticing how the snow caught the last traces of brightness. He felt a gentle gratitude for the day as it had been, unhurried, kind in its own quiet way. Evening brought no dread to night, only continuity, a sense that the calm would carry forward. As dusk settled fully, Verdun slipped once again into stillness. The snow held fast, the cold steady, the silence complete. And in this gentle transition from light to dark, the men remained calm, ready to let the night arrive at its own patient pace. Evening returned quietly, like a familiar presence stepping back into the room. The last traces of daylight faded from the snow, leaving behind a soft uniform dimness that wrapped Verdun in calm. The cold grew a little firmer now, settling into bones and breath, yet it felt expected, almost comforting in its consistency. Lanterns were lit one by one, their flames small and steady, casting gentle halos against the darkening trench walls. The warm light revealed faces relaxed by the long, peaceful day, eyes slower to move, expressions softened by hours of stillness. Shadows flickered lazily, stretching and shrinking as the lantern swayed, never sharp, never threatening. Snow rested quietly on every surface, no longer shifting, no longer falling. It seemed content simply to remain, holding the world in place. Outside the trench, the field disappeared into darkness, its white surface faintly visible where moonlight brushed against it. The battlefield withdrew once more, becoming distant and abstract, like something remembered rather than seen. The men gathered close, not out of fear, but out of habit and warmth. A quiet exchange of glances passed between them, unspoken acknowledgments of shared endurance. Words felt unnecessary. The evening did not ask for conversation. It asked only for presence. As the night deepened, Verdun settled fully into its winter rest. The calm of the day lingered, carried forward into darkness by snow and silence. And within the trenches, beneath lantern light and frozen sky, the men allowed themselves to remain still, letting the evening hold them gently once again. Night settled completely over Verdun, deep and unbroken. The moon rose slowly behind thin clouds, its light filtering down in a pale glow that reflected off the snow. Everything appeared softer beneath this snow light. Edges blurred, distances shortened, the world reduced to gentle contrasts of light and shadow. Silence returned in full, calm and steady. A watch was kept, as always, but it felt different tonight. The sentry stood with relaxed shoulders, eyes moving slowly across the field. Snow crunched faintly beneath his boots as he shifted his weight, the sound quickly absorbed by the night. Each breath rose and faded, a quiet rhythm matching the stillness around him. In the trenches, others rested, wrapped in blankets and coats. Sleep came easily now, carried by the day's long calm. Dreams formed gently, shaped by snow and silence, free of sudden edges. The cold pressed close, but it did not feel harsh. It felt like a presence, constant and known. Outside, the snow-covered field glowed faintly under the moon, untouched and vast. It seemed to stretch endlessly, a quiet mirror of the sky above. The land held its breath, listening, waiting, content in its frozen rest. As the watch continued, time flowed unnoticed. Minutes blended into one another, smooth and even. Verdun remained still beneath the moon, guarded by snowlight and quiet vigilance, held safely within the long, peaceful night. The night reached its deepest hour, the time when silence feels thickest and the world seems furthest from morning. Verdun lay completely still beneath the moon, the snow glowing softly, as if lit from within. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, dimming and revealing the light in slow cycles that felt like gentle breathing. In the trenches, sleep was deep and unbroken. Bodies rested where they had settled, wrapped in layers of wool and quiet trust. The slow rise and fall of chests blended with the night itself, creating a rhythm that felt shared between land and men alike. Even thoughts seemed to sleep now, drifting far from worry and weight. The sentry paused, listening. There was nothing to hear but the soft whisper of wind moving over snow, a sound so faint it was almost imagined. He felt steady, anchored by the calm, aware of his place in this quiet moment. The night asked for nothing more than attention and patience. Beyond the trenches, the field lay unchanged, untouched by footsteps or sound. The snow protected everything beneath it, holding memories in gentle stillness. Under the moon's pale watch, Verdun felt timeless, suspended between past and future, existing only in this long, quiet now. As the deepest hour passed, nothing shifted suddenly. The night remained kind, the silence unbroken. And in that calm, the world seemed to rest more fully than it had in a long time, wrapped securely in snow and darkness. Somewhere beyond awareness, the night began its quiet turn toward morning. Nothing changed all at once. The darkness did not lift, and the cold did not loosen its hold. Yet beneath the stillness, time continued its gentle movement, like a clock whose ticking could not be heard, only felt. The moon drifted lower, its light thinning as clouds passed slowly across it. Snow remained untouched, smooth and patient, reflecting whatever light reached it. Verdun rested deeply now, settled into the long rhythm of winter nights that asked for nothing and offered only rest. The land seemed content to remain as it was, held in calm suspension. In the trenches, sleepers shifted slightly, pulled by subtle changes in the air. A breath deepened, a shoulder turned. These movements were small and instinctive, part of the body's quiet conversation with the passing hours. No dreams startled them awake. Everything moved gently, guided by the same softness that had carried the day into night. The sentry felt it too, the almost unnoticed easing of the darkness. He did not look for dawn yet. He simply stood, present and steady, trusting the slow turning of the world. Snow creaked faintly beneath his boots, then fell silent again, as if the sound itself had decided not to linger. As the night continued its gradual release, Verdun remained calm, wrapped in white and shadow. Morning would come in its own time. Until then, the snow, the silence, and the steady passage of hours held the world exactly as it needed to be. Before the sun appeared, light returned in the faintest whisper. The sky shifted from deep gray to a softer shade, barely noticeable unless watched with care. Snow reflected this change immediately, catching the pale glow and spreading it gently across the field. Verdun began to stir, not with sound, but with awareness. In the trenches, breath became visible again, slow and steady in the cold air. A few eyes opened, unfocused at first, then settling as the new day quietly introduced itself. Frost clung to edges of wood and fabric, glittering softly as the light strengthened. The night released its hold without protest. The field beyond remained untouched, smooth and white, stretching calmly into the distance. No tracks disturbed its surface. It looked as though the world had been made anew overnight, its history carefully hidden beneath winter's cover. The light did not reveal harshness. It softened everything it touched. One soldier sat up slowly, careful not to wake the others. He watched the sky change, feeling the calm of the moment settle into him. Morning here did not rush. It arrived with patience, offering space to breathe, to notice, to simply be present. As first light spread, Verdun welcomed the day quietly. Snow glowed faintly under the growing sky, and the men remained still, carried forward by the gentle promise of another calm beginning. The morning unfolded much like the one before, as if time had chosen to repeat itself softly. Light strengthened without glare, spreading evenly across the snow-covered land. Verdun appeared calm and distant, its edges blurred by white and pale sky. The cold remained steady, familiar, no longer sharp, but quietly present. The men rose slowly, moving with the ease of routine shaped by stillness. Coats were adjusted, boots pressed into snow with dull, gentle sounds. No one spoke loudly. The morning seemed to ask for quiet, and they answered without effort. Steam rose from cups and breaths alike, then vanished into the air. Outside the trench, the field held its calm, unchanged and unmarked. Snow reflected the light upward, making the world feel open and spacious. For a moment it was possible to imagine this place without its weight, to see only winter and silence, untouched by memory. A soldier leaned against the trench wall, watching the light shift almost imperceptibly. He felt a sense of balance, as if the world had found a steady rhythm and invited him to share it. The war did not intrude on this moment. It waited beyond the edges of awareness. As the morning continued, Verdun remained peaceful, wrapped in repetition and calm. Yesterday's quiet had returned, unchanged, offering once more the gentle comfort of a morning shaped by snow and stillness. As the morning eased forward, the snow seemed to take on a new role, not falling, not melting, but holding everything gently in place. It pressed softly against the ground, against wood and stone, binding the day together with quiet patience. Verdun felt steady, as if anchored by the white layer spread across it. The men moved through their hours calmly, guided by familiar routines. A hand brushed frost from a sleeve. A boot nudged packed snow aside to make room along the trench floor. These movements were small, almost meditative, repeated without thought. The rhythm of the day felt even and unbroken, shaped by the snow's quiet presence. Light shifted slowly overhead, drifting rather than traveling. The sky remained pale, its color reflected back by the field until it was hard to tell where land ended and air began. The battlefield seemed suspended within this brightness, neither fully revealed nor completely hidden. It existed softly, as if wrapped in layers of memory and rest. One soldier paused, resting his hands against the cold wood, feeling its firmness beneath his palms. He listened, not for danger, but for continuity. The stillness answered him wide and calm. In that response he felt reassured, grounded by the sense that the day would unfold gently, just as it had begun. As the hours continued, the snow remained unchanged, patient and protective. Verdun held together beneath it, calm and composed, allowing the men to move through the day with quiet steadiness, carried forward by winter's gentle restraint. Noon arrived without announcement, slipping into place as softly as the rest of the day. The light grew a little stronger, yet it remained cool and pale, spreading evenly across the snow. Shadows shortened, then paused, as if unsure whether to move any further. Verdun rested beneath this steady brightness, calm and contained. The air felt balanced now, not warming, not cooling, simply present. Breathing came easily, the cold no longer sharp. The men felt this shift and responded without thinking, relaxing their shoulders, settling deeper into the quiet rhythm of the day. Nothing pressed forward, nothing pulled away. Outside the trench, the field glowed gently, the snow reflecting light in a way that softened the horizon. Everything appeared level and smooth, as though the land itself had been carefully evened out. The battlefield felt distant, its details blurred by brightness and white. A soldier sat with his back against the trench wall, eyes half closed, letting the light fall across his face. He felt the quiet weight of the moment, not heavy, but grounding, like a blanket resting just firmly enough to be comforting. Time slowed further here, stretching into long, peaceful minutes. As noon held steady, Verdun remained unchanged. Snow, light, and silence worked together to keep the world calm and balanced. and within that gentle stillness, the men found themselves moving easily through the heart of the day, unhurried and at rest. Afternoon, the day began its quiet lean toward afternoon. The light shifted just enough to be felt, not seen, and the snow responded by deepening in color, taking on a faint, cooler tone. Verdun remained still, but there was a sense of gentle movement beneath the calm, like a tide slowly turning. The men noticed the change in small ways. The air cooled slightly, and breath lingered a moment longer before fading. Shadows stretched again, soft and unhurried, tracing familiar shapes along the trench walls. No one rushed. The pace of the day invited patience. Outside, the field remained smooth and reflective, the snow holding its shape. The sky stayed pale, its light diffused and even. Looking out across the white, it was easy to lose a sense of distance, to feel as though the world extended endlessly without interruption. The stillness felt wide and open. One soldier stood quietly, hands resting against the trench edge, feeling the cold through his gloves. He watched the light change, appreciating its subtlety. There was comfort in knowing that the day moved forward without conflict, guided by natural rhythms rather than sudden demands. As afternoon slowly approached, Verdun remained composed, leaning gently with the day. Snow, light, and silence continued their quiet partnership, carrying the hours forward with calm and steady grace. The afternoon settled in fully, bringing with it a deeper, more settled quiet. The light softened again, spreading gently across the snow, without sharp contrast. Verdun felt hushed and reflective, as though the land itself were turning inward, resting within its own calm. The men moved less now, conserving energy, matching the slow drift of the hours. Some sat quietly, watching the snow where it met the trench edge. Others leaned against the wood, eyes unfocused, listening to the stillness. Even thought seemed to move more slowly, unburdened by urgency. Outside, the field remained undisturbed, its surface smooth and pale. The snow showed no sign of melting or shifting. It lay as it had since morning, faithful and steady, holding the shape of the day. The battlefield's harsh lines remained softened, distant, almost abstract. A faint breeze passed over the land, barely stirring the air. It carried no sound, only a subtle change in temperature, then was gone. The men felt it and then forgot it, returning easily to the calm that surrounded them. As the afternoon quiet deepened, Verdun rested within it, unchanged and composed. Time continued to move, but gently, carried forward by snow, light, and the unbroken stillness that held the day together. Slowly, almost without anyone noticing the exact moment, evening began to return. The light thinned and cooled, sliding gently across the snow, until the field took on a faint silver-blue hue. Verdun did not resist the change, it welcomed it, as if evening were an old companion arriving quietly, already familiar with the shape of the land. The men felt the shift in their bodies before they saw it with their eyes. Shoulders relaxed, movements grew fewer, hands tucked deeper into pockets, drawing warmth inward. There was no signal, no command, only an unspoken understanding that the day was easing toward rest once more. Snow remained firm beneath their boots, faintly glowing where the last light touched it. Shadows stretched again, longer now, softer, blending gently into one another. The battlefield seemed to recede. Its presence softened until it felt like something far away, separated by layers of quiet and white. A soldier paused at the trench edge, looking out as the light faded. He felt calm, not because danger was gone, but because the rhythm of the day had been kind. Evening did not bring fear to night. It brought continuity, a gentle folding of time back into stillness. As dusk settled, Verdun grew quieter still. Snow, light, and silence aligned once more, preparing the land for another long night of rest. The calm held steady, patient, and deep, ready to carry the world forward into darkness again. Night returned slowly, lowering itself over Verdun like a thick, comforting blanket. The last traces of color faded from the sky, leaving behind deep blues and soft grays that blended seamlessly into the snow below. The cold grew firmer again, but it felt familiar, expected, as though the land and the men had already agreed to welcome it back. Lanterns were lit once more, their gentle flames breathing warmth into the trenches. Light pooled quietly around boots and blankets, revealing calm faces shaped by repetition and endurance. The flicker of fire softened every edge, turning wood, metal, and shadow into something almost gentle. Snow clung quietly to the trench rim, glowing faintly where lantern light touched it. Outside, the field disappeared into darkness, its white surface now only hinted at by moonlight. The snow reflected just enough light to suggest distance, without revealing detail. The battlefield felt far away again, withdrawn into the night, held safely behind layers of silence. The men settled in, wrapped tightly, bodies still and relaxed. Breathing slowed, thoughts loosened their grip. There was no urgency in the air, no sharp sound waiting to break the calm. Night asked only for rest, and it was answered willingly. As Verdun slipped fully into darkness, the snow remained watchful and steady. It held the land in place, quiet and unchanged, while the night deepened around it. And within that gentle enclosure, the world rested once more, suspended in winter's calm. The night grew deeper, reaching that quiet place where hours seem to dissolve and time feels almost unreal. Verdun rested at the edge of this stillness, wrapped in darkness and snow, as if the world had gently stepped away and left only calm behind. The moon moved slowly across the sky, its light faint and patient, touching the snow just enough to remind the land it was not alone. In the trenches, the men slept or lay half awake, suspended between thought and dream. Breathing blended with the cold air, steady and unbroken. Blankets were pulled close, and bodies settled into familiar shapes, carved by long days and longer nights. There was no struggle now, only rest, shaped by trust in the quiet holding them. The sentry walked a slow, careful path, boots pressing softly into packed snow. Each step felt measured, respectful of the silence. He paused often, not because he heard something, but because the stillness itself felt complete. Nothing asked to be interrupted, nothing needed to be changed. Beyond him, the field lay untouched, a wide, pale emptiness beneath the stars. Snow covered every memory, every mark, holding the past gently beneath its surface. Verdun felt timeless here, as though it existed outside of history, balanced between what had been and what would come. As the night lingered in this deep, quiet space, the world seemed to rest more fully than ever before. Snow, darkness, and silence worked together, keeping everything exactly where it needed to be, calm, steady, and waiting for the final soft turn toward morning. Very slowly, almost imperceptibly, the long night began to loosen its hold. Not with light, not yet, but with a subtle easing in the air, a feeling that the world was preparing to move forward once more. Verdun remained quiet, wrapped in snow and shadow, but time had begun its final, gentle turn. The men slept on, breathing deep and even, their rest undisturbed. Snow rested firmly on the land, unchanged, faithful to its watch until the very end. It had softened sharp edges, muted old echoes, and carried the weight of memory without complaint. Now it seemed content, having done what it came to do. Above the trenches, the sky shifted almost too softly to notice. Darkness thinned at its edges, blending into a deep gray that promised morning without urgency. The moon faded and the stars withdrew, leaving behind a vast, quiet openness. Verdun felt balanced, neither asleep nor awake, suspended in a final moment of perfect stillness. One last breath of cold passed over the field, and the snow seemed to settle more deeply, as if tucking the land in. Beneath it, everything rested, earth, memory, and time itself. The battlefield was still there, unchanged beneath the surface, but for this moment it was held gently, allowed to be quiet, and as the night prepared to release the world back to the day, Verdun remained calm, dignified, and at rest. Its story whispered softly beneath a blanket of snow. Thank you for spending this quiet journey with me, walking slowly through the soft snowfall over Verdun. If this calm historical sleep story helped you relax or drift toward rest, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. As you close your eyes, carry the stillness of the snow with you, the silence, the gentle rhythm of breath, and the calm that lingers when the world finally rests. May your night be peaceful, your sleep deep, and your dreams soft and unhurried.